Now come back to see this is an ATM part 3. Try to concatenating the input. So means that I want to keep concatenate into input and set the text. Then I can take care of 2 or 3 or 4 digits pins, because before it's only do 1 or 2. So this is just to test and show. Like now let's go to 2 digit pin, right? If the pin is 2269, then we can concatenate up to 2269, which the value happen to store in input. And after you are done with the pin, you pretty much just need to call authentication and do action on the enter, right? And pass the input. And I happen to share the input, and it should be okay, right? As the private variable to the class, right? Then now I'm going to program the rest of the buttons, clear, 0, and enter. So now there's another way to do this too, okay? Like if you read the questions. So the questions say create an inner listener class, name it button action, clear action, enter action, right? To register action, to enter button. So this is pretty much just like I showed you earlier. Beside anonymous class, you can do the local class, okay? Like this is the one, like I want to create like that way, English greeting implements hello world. So let me show you how to do it with the button here. So like for example, instead of doing add action listener, like let me review add action listener for the 0 buttons, right? Instead of doing like the 0 buttons, you can add the action listener right here. Dot add action listener. And if I do anonymous class, so I do new action listener, right? Create inside like that, right? So pretty much just need to implement, right? Action listener, right? And implement the action performed, right? Then when I hit 0, it's pretty much I needed to do the same thing, which is this, right? So I just put it here, correct? When I enter, it's concatenated to the input, and right. So let's double check this button to make sure it's working. 0, 8, 5, 6. You see that? That can be a pin. Now I'm going to make an action to clear, right? Like anonymous class, you can do just like that, right? Clear button dot add action listener, new, right? Action listener. Now I'm not going to do that as anonymous classes. I'm going to ask like an inner class or the local class that the requirements say. Means I need to create another class. Let's say I'm going to create another class name clear listener instead of action listener, right? Of course I don't have clear listener. That means instead of do anonymous, this is just like English, right? The English one, right? That I show on the I'm going to create a class. Okay, so if I want to create a class, I just scroll down and just inside the class, this is the close of the class, right? But I create another class name class clear listener, and this is going to implement, because this is like another class that's going to implement action and interface, right? Listener. If you look at our anonymous classes, we just do new action listener like there, right? New action listener. But this guy is going to do pretty much just implement action listener, right? So this is a class, not a method. Alright, so now I just require to do the same. Add action performed is the same now, right? Instead of anonymous class, this is like an inner class or local class, right? Right, so that's why when I do, it's just make it easier to read pretty much, right? Then you just do the new one. That's it, and it's done. Then you just do the clear action here. The clear action, pretty much you want to clear the text, so you just say the password, right? Field dot set text. And how do you clear? Set to empty, like that. So we just clear the text. Okay, so let's verify that by running the program. So if I enter the pin, just verify at the bottom. Let's do 4 pins and clear it. There you go, it's gone, right? So see, this is called an inner class or the local class. Beside do anonymous class, you can do this way. So let me show you one more time. Okay, so I did show you with anonymous class twice for the numbers, right? For the numbers, this is not an anonymous class. For the numbers, I did anonymous classes. Now I'm going to show you again. This is called the inner class or local class, right? It's just made the code more cleaner, okay, too easy to read or something like that. So I'm going to do with a pin pad, no, not a pin pad, D. So this add in 0, the enter, right? It's for authentication at this point. So the enter, I'm going to do the add action listener, and this I'm going to use the local class or inner class. Again, add action listener. So we going to do new, like you can create your class name now, right? Anonymous class doesn't have the name. Now you understand why I say it doesn't have the name, but the local class here has the name. I named it enter listener. See that? It's just like you instantiate only once to use right here. Okay, and then you can just go to the bottom and create another class named enter listener. Right, so this is like an inner class or local class here to use. And it's a class, so no parentheses. And the same, you just implement the interface. So that means you require to add unimplemented methods right here. Okay, so now we can start to do what do you want to do with the action of the enter. I said, okay, I'm going to call authentications, and I already have the authentication method ready, okay, from the previous, right? Actually, I can just copy the code from the download here because I have it ready. It's very simple if-else statements here, the class, right? And put the valid pin in there, right? So at this point, we are just going to create a valid pin as the variables in the authentication to use. So I'm going to create that class, new authentication, right? And this is going to be very simple code. We already know this, just if-else statements here. And let me just, let's say my valid pin is going to be 1, 2, 4, 5. Okay, so that's the correct one, right? This is compare enter pin. So now, since it's in the same package, I don't need to import. So I just going to call and make it static. Then I can just call authentication and access to that, just like the way you do with math.square-root, right? So you can just do that class name authenticate the pin, and the pin is pretty much just the input, right, that the user have. So I just authenticate that. So if, right, authentication is true, what do you want to do? If it's true, then you want to do something else, right? So if I want to make it simple, I just pop up the option pane, right? That show, and normally this is not going to be a J option pane. It's going to be another GUI, right? To get to the ATM to withdraw buttons, right? Right. So let me actually show you that then. Then you understand the concept of how to link different GUI, like this one. Yeah, let's test this first. Okay. Show message dialog. And I'm going to say welcome, right? So when it's correct. So otherwise, I'm going to say fail authentication. So this ATM driver, I'm going to close that. Then we have spaces. Fail authentication. And this is a point where you may want to do the counter taking care of 3 times, right? For validations. Let me close the rest. And let's run again. Alright, what is the pin? 1, 2, 4, 5, is it right? Welcome. And if I clear and enter the wrong pin, clear. Ooh, that's a problem with clear. You should also clear the string, right? The input has to be clear too, right? I only clear the text, so you have to clear the input too, right? So let's run again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Fail authentication. See that? But this is the point that you actually want to not just do the option pane, you want to create another frame, another GUI, and open it right to the next page and hide this one. But for this assignment, looks good, right? So let's look at verifying. Declare an integer variable named correct pin and assign 1, 2, 3, 4 as a class variables. Okay. Yeah, like that is what it is, right? Like a class variables. This is a class variable of the class, right? Okay. If the pin is correct, the option pin dialog box will pop up. Welcome. That's what we did. Incorrect, so trial left and keep doing that. So I think you can handle that. You can set the size, or you can do pack. I just did a pack. Provide appropriate Java comments. Okay, so that's it. This is the ATM. Now, so the ATM is done. Should be easy. So let's review a little bit. So we have ATM class, right? That do all the GUI, right? This is the display panel. Okay, so the display panel, the whole thing here, and set to border layout because I need to have the north, which is text field that I add to the password field, right? Add to the north right there, and set the fonts to make it bigger with height 30. And then I have pin pad panel, which is all the pins here, right? So that's grid layout, like 4 rows and 3 columns because those are 12 buttons, right? And now this is the loop to create all the buttons, 0 to, which is 1 to 9 now, because I want to make it look like the font 1 to 9. But 0 because it's the array always start from 0. Then I have to add 0 plus 1 to make it 1. But this is array index 0. But change the text up to 8, then it's 9. Now scroll down. This is where you add the action, right? This is use anonymous class here to add the action when you hit. But this part taking care of concatenating the text, then you can have the sequence like that. Then you set text once after you hit adding. Okay. This print line you don't need it anymore, right? Because we verify the values here. That's just for testing, right? For production or when you want user to use, you don't need it. You don't want user to see this pin, right? Because you want to hide it. That's why we use JPassword field. Then you add that to the panel, which is at the bottom here, right? You add to pin pad panel all the buttons. Now we have clear, which is to pin pad panel too. And this is just the inner class or the local class. So you pretty much just create the clear class here, which is the same implement action listener. Do perform, clear the password field and clear input, right? And we do another authentication. This is 0 first. That's for the button zeros. I have to separate them because make it like the phone. And then authentications, which is do the authentication class